We said that we were going to do this. We're going to at least try our best to break down the New Jersey governor's race. I have been paying attention to this. I know we've been trading texts back and forth about it. And a lot has happened already.
That's kind of like, so we've been talking about this for a while now, and like it has changed so much.
It's been ridiculous too, because when we first started like kind of game planning this, we still had Ed Durr in the race.
Yeah.
And Ed Durr, for the audience who may not know, was that one trucker who won the Senate seat, the state Senate seat down in like in South Jersey. He beat Steve Sweeney for that.
I wish I could remember where exactly it was, but I can't.
Yeah, for as much research as I've done into this, there was like the one thing that I didn't look up. Also because it's not relevant anymore.
No, it's not.
Because he dropped out of the race. I think he dropped out of the race when I was still in Ireland.
Yeah, for sure.
I never saw a pathway for him to victory just because he was like the Trumper candidate. Like out of anybody, he was like
of all of them, for sure. The
Trumper.
one that took it most as like the baton to run with.
And the issue with him is that like if you were going to vote for Ed Durr, then there's Bill Spadia right there, who is more like he's better at like speaking in a public setting. He's better at just like public speaking in general.
He's a much better communicator, which makes sense for
a radio host.
He's a radio host, And like in full honesty, I didn't know a whole lot about him, but like he's had quite a bit of a following, for sure. And I mean, like I said, as a person that doesn't know a whole lot, never really listened to him at any real point, but like, he's a little salacious.
Yeah. And it's, the thing about that, too, is so he was taking up that Trumper kind of like the Trumper vote. Yeah. And then you had Jack Ciattarelli, who had been the previous candidate in the 2021 election. And he got the endorsement from Trump very recently. Yeah. So aside from already dominating the polls, there were a number of polls where he was up by like 30, 40, 50%. This kind of puts a death knell
solidified
to Bill Spadia. Yeah. We haven't even talked about John Bramnick, who's like the best I can say about him is that he's the never Trumper and he doesn't like the internet. Like
Bramnick. So for backstory, like I see a lot of, obviously we all know what my job is. I deliver mail.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing. Political mailers.
Yeah.
They get to send these things out for next to nothing, and because of the way regulations and laws are set up, they get treated as the most important piece of mail that we have. We have whole systems for them. Essentially, they're junk mail price for more than registered mail priority.
Yeah.
And I see a ton of this stuff. And with Bramnick, it's hilarious because, like we just said, it's kind of zipped up on the Republican side. He's hitting it very hard right now, and there might be a little bit of lag to the whole system. It is the U.S. Postal Service. But his big thing is public servant by day, comedian by night.
Yeah, I did not know that until you brought that up right before we hit the record button, and I had to look it up on his Wikipedia page. It's like, he wrote like a comedy book, and then like he's like the funniest lawyer in like 2019 or whatever.
That's the thing on all his advertisements, all his political mailers, whatever, voted New Jersey's funniest lawyer or whatever the case may be. And it's just like, what does that mean?
And it's so interesting before we jump off the Republican side, because there really isn't a whole lot to talk about the Republican. It's kind of locked up for Ciattarelli. Yeah. Whether you like that or not, that's kind of
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Their debates. Like I know you watched them.
I did.
And I'm like, this is like a fucking train wreck. It took no effort for them to just be going like back and forth, butting heads, like you're a piece of crap, you're a piece of crap. I was just like, what am I listening to?
It is almost just indicative of how it works here in New Jersey anyway. This is a state that's shown by virtue of like how Chris Christie came into power. Yep. People love that attitude. And, like, it often doesn't really amount to much anything getting done, but you get these bombastic personalities.
I remember watching some of the, like, how you would describe it perhaps as, like, a post-game, where they were talking to, like, a liberal and a conservative after it. And the conservative, I thought, made a pretty halfway decent point. This was after the first debate, I think.
Okay.
Where she was kind of like, listen, the GOP in New Jersey does not get a whole lot of money. Nowhere near the amount of money that the New Jersey Democrat Party pulls in. So there's a limited amount of these debates. So they're all like kind of scrambled to get that moment.
That tracks. That makes sense. I mean, this is New Jersey. I mean, it's almost largely always going to go blue.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way it is. We saw a little bit of shift with like the Trump election and stuff like that, how certain things fell there. But like New Jersey is, for as small as it is, a very different state depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
If you're in the more urban areas, obviously that's going to go more blue. But we have large agrarian areas too, which are almost always going to go red.
Yeah.
And then you have the shore areas like Ocean County, which, I mean, there's just a lot of money there. And that's just almost always going to go red itself.
The more of these that we do, we can break down to more of like strategy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I would like, since we don't have a tremendous amount of time to do all of these things. I figured this is just like a good
primer.
Like, primer and all that stuff. So for the most part, we don't have a whole hell of a lot to talk about with the GOP.
No.
We do, however, have a lot to talk about with the Democrat Party.
Yes.
So a lot has happened on that side as well. The biggest thing so far is that Ras Baraka, who is like in contention there, like in some polls 2, some polls 3, never won. He got arrested, quote unquote, outside of like an ICE facility in Newark, or just like it's attached to ICE in some shape, manner, or form.
It's one of those things. Like obviously this isn't the first time this card has been played.
Yeah.
And I get it. And it's celebrities have done this for thousands of years. Thousands of years, sorry, hundreds of years.
But it's also at the same time too, since he's trailing in almost every poll, and as we talked about like before we hit record as well, Mikie Sherrill, who is also one of the Democrat nominees, or not nominees, running.
He's a candidate.
Yeah, one of the candidates. Thank you. I was blanking on the word candidate for some reason.
Trust me, I'm going to blank on far worse things.
But so she is in more and more of the polls, she's widening her lead as the undecideds make up their mind. So in that Emerson poll that we were talking about before, she's up to 28%.
She's one that I don't really see much out there for in my purview. Yeah. What's her deal? Like, where is she from?
So she is a congresswoman.
Okay.
And she's also like in her ads, because I see them on YouTube all the time. She's leaning hard into like the Navy thing. So she was a helicopter pilot. She went to the Naval Academy, this, that, and the other thing. The way her messaging isn't any different, because like all of the ads from like Gottheimer and the way that they all talk on the debates is they're trying to make this election about Trump. And
I mean, I'm not surprised. But
it's a part of the Democrat playbook. So I get it, but also at the same time, one of the bigger issues right now in the state is we have this engineer strike with NJT.
Yep.
And
that just started.
That is not. You can't blame that on Trump.
No.
That is not a Trump issue.
No.
So you're going to have to contend with that, and that's something that happened under Phil Murphy's watch.
Yep.
And a very interesting thing, too, that I wanted to bring up as we're rolling through some of these candidates, in that Emerson poll, which had the plurality of Democrats, I think it was about 43% Democrats, like 29% Republican and 20% Independents.
Independent, yeah.
Phil Murphy had a wider disapproval rating. So I think it was like 40 to 47, like disapprove. So he was disapproved 47%, and his approval was 40.
Okay.
Trump was a tie at 47-47 practically.
That's interesting.
Indicates to me that whoever was taking this poll, Democrat, that could just be a number of people, but there are some Democrats out there with that 3% difference that are not happy with the way Phil Murphy has handled his 8 years as governor, and that can leak down as well into this election, which is really, since there's so many people there, it's really, really going to be difficult for any one of them to kind of stand out. Now, Mikie Sherrill getting the most amount of money and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So she might just be able to just like favorite her way into the nomination.
Yeah,
but
she's one I got to look more into.
Yeah, she is. So I watched that second debate. As we record this, we're in between the two final debates for both parties. And she ended that most recent debate that we just had.
Yeah.
He said, like, all of the Democrats kind of do the same thing. It's kind of interesting whenever they break away from like the party line.
No,
like
for sure,
Steve Sweeney did that to a degree when he said like I would end our sanctuary state status in that debate. Mikie Sherrill towards the end. Now I dress the way I dress. I'm a big Navy football fan.
Of course.
When at the very end, when they were saying like, oh, should you be allowed as a parent to, remove your child from LGBTQ, like lessons and all that stuff, what I would call queer theory, because that's the whole deeper thing.
Sure.
What ended up happening was she said, oh, well, I think parents should be able to do a whole bunch of things, but they shouldn't be able to do that. And then she sort of like trailed off into this like there's an erasure of history going on at the Naval Academy.
Interesting. Oh, that's right. She did say that. Yes.
And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And then I looked it up.
Right.
And she effectively was alluding to all of these like critical theory books, like queer theory, critical race theory books being taken out of the United States Naval Academy and Air Force Academy's libraries. Where I'm like, that's not an erasure of history, especially by its definition. It's not an erasure of history.
Right,
also, why the fuck were those books in our academies anyway, in those libraries anyway? Those are schools that are supposed to be training our future officers in the military, and they're supposed to be learning about like engineering, the way ships and planes and all that stuff work. It's like, where do you get the time to read about that shit? So
it's a valid question. And I mean, when did that get installed?
Yeah. So like it seems to me, and that's the unfortunate thing is when I watch some of these debates, I know I'm like, first of all, most of the candidates on the Republican side lost me with how childish they were in that first debate. And then I listened to what the Democrats are saying, and I'm like, oh, goodness gracious, I can't vote for anyone here. And every once in a while, I'll pick out something like I alluded to with like Steve Sweeney, or like, all right, that's good.
Yeah.
And then they'll say something else, and I'm like,
oh
God in heaven. Yeah.
It's like I said, getting back to how like New Jersey kind of operates. Obviously the GOP has a rough time in this state.
Yep. They are making some headway, though, in terms of registration. I've shared with you some of the graphics that a Twitter account that I can't remember off the top of my head has been making, where the Republican Party has been increasingly getting more and more registrations.
Yeah.
Now, the gap is still over 800,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans. Yeah. So what kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, I remember being surprised at the post-Trump election numbers.
Yeah.
That was actually very surprising to me. Yeah. It trended more towards Trump than I thought it would.
Yeah, well, it absolutely did. And it was like Biden and Hillary Clinton wiped the freaking floor with Trump in those elections. They won by like double-digit percentage points.
No, absolutely.
And like, I think it might have been like 16 or 17 for Biden in New Jersey.
That sounds about right. I couldn't tell you the exact
It might have been
number.
more for Hillary. I might be getting those two numbers confused. But they definitely won New Jersey by a lot. And this was actually the interesting thing about it, too. So Trump only lost New Jersey for about 4 or 5 points. I think it was closer to 5. But the interesting thing about that is Ciattarelli, a couple of years earlier, only lost to Phil Murphy by a few percentage points, too.
It was fairly close.
It was about the same percentage point, I think. Maybe it was like 4 or 5, 5, 6, something like that. And it really did come down to, in that election, it came down to there's like Somerset, Middlesex, Burlington, but then you have those key North Jersey counties, Bergen and Passaic.
Yes.
And Ciattarelli was winning Passaic for a good chunk of that time, like before they kind of like, all right, we're going to stop counting for the night. And then the next morning, Phil Murphy was winning Passaic. So it'll be very interesting because those are things that we'll have to keep an eye on of how those places, how those counties swung, because Trump was able to win Passaic. So where he ended up losing New Jersey was in those middle counties.
Yes.
So Middlesex, Somerset, and Burlington. Because for the most part, if you're a Republican, you're not going to win Camden County because Camden will carry it for the Democrats.
Yep, always.
You're not going to win Mercer. Nope. Trenton will carry that.
Yep.
You're not going to win Hudson. Jersey City will carry that.
Absolutely. Not a chance.
And then you're not going to win Essex. Essex. Yeah. Because Newark is there, Montclair is there, and those are pretty liberal areas as well.
They're absolute havens for that sort of thing, and it'd be a joke to think it would go otherwise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it'll be interesting to see. We do have other candidates that we didn't get a chance to talk about. Like we got Steve Falloop, who he seems to be like, I know I'm going to cut across as some like sort of like I don't know, red-pilled motherfucker in this one.
Sure.
But like he seems to be the most beta bitch on that fucking stage.
I have only, and like I've known he's been in the race, but like not really doing a whole lot of advertisement. Yeah. I only just saw for the first time in 1 yard signs for Falloop.
Yeah. They all seem to be like gathered in like on the side of like one Wawa. There's like all 17 that they had to put out, but it's all for Steve Falloop. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like you gotta put those like in different places.
Right. And also understand like I live and operate in Ocean County. Yeah. So like some things I'm not gonna see very often.
Yeah.
But I was like, Falloop. Oh, I forgot he was even in this game.
Well, that's interesting too, because it's like, so you have Sherrill, Congresswoman. You have Baraka, mayor of Newark.
Yeah.
So I haven't like really introduced any of these people. You got Falloop, who's the mayor of Jersey City.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then we have Steve Sweeney, who was the former president of the New Jersey Senate.
Yep.
Sean Spiller.
Spiller. Oh my! He was the one I was so mad at the beginning because he's been advertising for this since before the presidential election.
Oh.
I am tired of seeing his face.
Yeah. But you'll be happy to know then that the former mayor of Montclair did not qualify for the debates, and he will not qualify for the next debate. It's not because he's polling poorly. He's actually polling a lot better than Steve Sweeney. It's that he's raised no money. So while everyone else is over millions of dollars, he has not raised, at least according to the data that I've seen last, he hasn't raised $500,000 yet. So that's why he's not on the stage.
Yeah.
It's an absolute non-starter if you can't raise any sort of money.
Exactly
and
right.
He's the one candidate that can't raise any money. Another thing I actually wanted to point out while we're still talking about the Democrats. So the polling is still an interesting data set to figure out where we are in the election. But there's also another really interesting data set because they held the county conventions.
Oh, right.
There's no real data set for the Republicans because there's a whole lot of unopposed things. And it's clearly going to Ciattarelli. So the less said about it, the better.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing, if I can remember this right because I don't have it pulled up, is that Mikie Sherrill pretty much won every single county in North Jersey, save for Somerset, Warren, and Bergen.
Yeah, okay.
So what Somerset did is, since they didn't really have a conclusive result to their convention, is that they endorsed 4 out of like the 6 candidates, or 5 out of the 6 candidates. And that's not an endorsement.
No, it's not.
No one got the endorsement then.
That's a turkey shit.
Yeah. And Warren and Bergen, I believe I have those counties right, went to...
That makes sense to me, yeah.
They went to Gottheimer.
Oh, okay.
And so the interesting thing about that is that while we stay in North Jersey, the mayor of freaking Newark got trounced by Mikie Sherrill in that convention. It was like a 66 to 33 kind of like wide margin. Now those numbers aren't completely accurate because other people got votes.
Of course.
But it was... She kicked the shit out of him in his own county.
Yeah.
And so that's got to be troubling if you're the Baraka campaign, because if you can't carry your own county, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Big time.
But the interesting thing about it beyond that is now that if we shift over to South Jersey, Mikie Sherrill didn't win a single convention, and she got trounced in most of them. For the most part, Steve Sweeney swept South Jersey. He didn't get Ocean County because I think Ocean County is just so red that they're just like, no, fuck you.
They're not interested.
Yeah. And Cape May County didn't have any sort of endorsement. Nobody won it.
No,
but Steve Sweeney won everything else, and that makes sense.
No kidding. Okay, yeah.
That makes sense because he's been such a prolific figure in South Jersey.
He's a known quantity. It's.
But the issue I would raise is because Steve Sweeney's probably not going to win this because he can't win a North Jersey county.
He's showing up to the dance, but he ain't taking anything home.
What happens with Mikie Sherrill in South Jersey?
That's a very good question.
Like, she pretty much should have won the Monmouth, but I think that went to I would have to look at the data again.
It's funny. Go ahead. Finish your point.
I think. Well, I might be mistaken. I think she should have won. She would have won Ocean. Yeah. Because she got the most votes, but it didn't go enough to like a majority. So they just said like we're not endorsing anybody.
It's so funny. Obviously the marketing through my job and stuff like that is very targeted, and it's like I have seen nothing from Mikie Sherrill.
Oh,
nothing.
Yeah,
nothing. It was like obviously like Spiller in the beginning. Yeah. Now a lot of the heavy stuff is our comedian Bramnick. He's the one hitting it heaviest at the moment. Spadia was real big for a blip.
Yeah,
and then
I'm seeing more and more of his signs now too. Yeah. I'm like, buddy, it's over.
Yeah. Oh God, I hated Spiller at the beginning.
Yeah.
When I say any of this, it's just because of the amount of work I have to do for these idiots. Spiller, like I said, before the presidential election, was sending shit out. I'm used to having 5 weeks of political mail. It's like beginning of October up to November. No one really does anything for primaries or anything like that, at least in print.
Yeah. Yeah, because like all you're doing for a primary is you're just trying to appeal to your party's base. Yeah. Just so you can get the nomination. Yeah. And I find it so interesting because, as you said, Mikie Sherrill's not really doing anything through like the mailers and this, that, and the other thing. Now, I'm seeing ads from her, but she was also able to get one of the nominations in North Jersey County because they didn't really hold a convention. It was just sort of like a bigwig, like some major players in one particular county just kind of like went from Gottheimer to her.
Right.
So it's not like she won like a shit ton of votes in every single county in North Jersey. She just carried some favor and, swung like 3 or 4 or 6 people to her side in that particular county. And I'm blanking on that because I was trying to figure out what happened in Union, and I didn't find any data with that because of what I was able to find is that some of these counties didn't have a convention.
Yes.
But then I see on the map that she got the endorsement. I'm like, well, how the hell did that happen?
Exactly.
And it answers my question. I think that was Middlesex. I will have to look into that. I think it was Middlesex where she was able to pull that off because she carried every single one of those counties kind of like.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Probably Middlesex.
Yeah. Like the races too were not very close. So that's why it makes me so interested in how Mikie Sherrill's going to do. If she does get the nomination, which right now she's in the lead, we can talk about this at a later time because we'll be doing more of these.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
The thesis that I have for this is that Mikie Sherrill might have a South Jersey problem. Where
it certainly sounds like it.
Now, if you can carry North Jersey, then you kind of carry the state.
More or less.
And you'll get Camden too. So, like, all right, you lose Atlantic and you lose Ocean and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Those are still surmountable as a Democrat. So it'll be very interesting if that kind of issue that she has with like the South Jersey culture costs her down the road against somebody like Jack Ciattarelli, who did very well in South Jersey. And then all he's got to do, because if there is that problem there, and Ciattarelli's like, I don't really have to campaign in South Jersey. I did well there last time.
Right.
And now I got to just pay attention to winning Middlesex, Somerset, and Bergen, Passaic, or Burlington. You don't have to win every single one of those. No. But if you carry enough of those, big population counties, then you're set.
Yeah.
So
interesting. I didn't realize that she was as much of a non-entity in the South.
Oh, I just don't think that one, it might. I don't know if there might be just that Democrats who vote blue no matter who.
Of course.
But I think it was also probably because of the name recognition of Steve Sweeney. But I'd be very interested to see because it wasn't like she was second.
Right.
She was like really behind everyone else in those areas. She was behind Ras Baraka, who you would think would not be popular in South Jersey because he's a Newark mayor. And
and he is like a known quantity figurehead that's in the media a lot and stuff like that. Yeah.
But also at the same time, like if you're a South Jersey Democrat, you would probably not even be like fully on board with Ras Baraka because he's the mayor of Newark. I don't want my South Jersey area to be like Newark. I would rather it be like, even if Camden's a shithole, you'd rather it be like Camden.
Right, what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Like a bunch of, I'm thinking Falloop and Spiller polled better than her in some of those. Now, I also would like to say too that since the population of South Jersey is a little bit more is less than that of North Jersey, that these conventions didn't necessarily have like a shit ton of voters, but
they're not 1-to-1. It's very different that way.
So that I'm using that as sort of like a temperature of the Democrat Party in each of those counties, and so if they're all like, yeah, Steve Sweeney, they'll probably get in line and fight for Mikie Sherrill too. But, like, is there any sort of temperature that we can get from that being like, oh, well, your typical South Jersey Democrat be like, you know what? Who cares?
That's a very good question, though.
It's just
a very good question.
This is all that I can do right now with the data that we have. Yeah. We have a few polls, and as we've learned in the last practically 10 years that the polling is not always accurate, particularly when Trump is involved.
Of
now,
course.
Trump is not involved, so I tend to rely on polling and stuff like that a little bit more.
Well, yeah, Trump, I mean, when you have these cult of personality types, obviously they kind of mess with the metric a bit. So, like I said, I was surprised.
Yeah.
Just by the numbers with the presidential election and stuff like that. So you never really know. But, like, he is not as much of an entity, even though his name is coming out of everybody's mouth.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the Democrat playbook.
Yeah.
You just got to be like, that's why I hate Gottheimer's freaking Gottheimer, a congressman.
Yes. Yeah.
His ads have just been all over the place. He's like, Donald Trump's chaos is causing a lot of problems. That's how chaos works. And then there's like, Josh Gottheimer, he's a fighter. And it's like an AI image of his adult face on a child with boxing gloves. And I'm like, what the hell am I looking at?
Oh, yeah, no, and, like, I know, like, over the course of this whole thing, I've sent you guys some pictures of some of these advertisements that have come through my way. It's bananas.
Yeah.
It's absolutely bananas.
There was also one, I was talking to Pedro about this at the bar, where it's like the lowest budget, like, piece of shit ad, and it's like it takes 5 seconds. It's just Gottheimer looking at the camera. It's like, hey, Jersey, I'm going to cut your taxes. And then it's just like this, like, public domain, like, soundbite that's just like, no way.
Oh my God.
And that's the ad.
It's so funny because I don't really I don't watch a lot of stuff. So, like, I don't really get, like, that media of ads.
Yeah.
I get the print ads that I see in front of my face, which very few people see because it's mail. It's just so funny, man.
Yeah, it's I might have seen Sean Spiller, but he's irrelevant to the race. He can't get into the debates.
Yeah.
Steve Sweeney is such an interesting case because he's an old school Democrat.
Yes.
Where he's like, he keeps quoting, or not quoting, but like referencing like Clinton and Obama when he talks about immigration. And those guys weren't necessarily known for being necessarily open borders.
Yeah, no.
So, like, he's an old school Democrat, but he's also, like, Trump is, like, a criminal and, like, this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
He's trying to, like, weigh being an old school South Jersey Democrat, but also still appeal to this more contemporary Democrat base.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's the state of it.
Yeah.
They don't know, a lot of them don't know how to land on this shit. Are you trying to appeal to younger voters?
Yeah.
Like, not only, like, geographically is it New Jersey wildly different, but like between like older voters and younger voters here too is wildly different. Yeah. It's hard. Like New Jersey's such a weird fucking state.
It is such a weird state, and that's what makes it so interesting to me. Just because, so you have a number of Democrats that are just ex-mayors of large cities, and I struggle to think of how they can connect to South Jersey, even South Jersey Democrats. It's like, do you want like? You might be, as Steve Falloop, be able to make more of a case. It's like, oh, I'll run New Jersey like Jersey City. Jersey City's doing fairly well, so that's not a huge problem.
Right.
But if you're Ras Baraka and you're like, hey, I'm the mayor of Newark, I think the entire state would be like, don't you dare go anywhere near Trenton. I don't want the state even resembling Newark.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I haven't heard a whole lot of people. I know people across the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
But on like the Democrat, my friends that are like on the Democratic side, like some really are looking to try to figure out what the best option is, and no one, I don't think, really has anybody they find to be amazing.
Yeah, well, I think the issue is that like they all kind of sound the same.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes Ras Baraka stand out to me is that he is really the tried and true like critical race theorist candidate.
Well, that's why I think he has stuck out to a lot of people that have been like, I don't know a lot about him, but I want to look into him because I think he's like a focal point for a lot of that type of deal.
He stands out because he just seems to be like he's the one guy. Now, we talked about this off mic as well. It's like that second Democrat debate. They got a little bit more heated, and they were all like stepping over each other, talking over each other, like saying, "You didn't do this, you didn't do that." And I could swear it was like. Also, at the same time, while they're trying to do that, when someone else is talking, they're so passive-aggressively saying, "Look, that's not how that went." And I'm like, "What the?
What is happening?
I wouldn't vote for you just for you acting like that."
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's childish. It's. I mean, the whole thing kind of makes me sick. If I'm honest, it's bananas. I have my own weird feelings about anybody that gets that point to it anyway.
Yeah.
But it is so wildly childish at times.
Oh, yeah, the whole process, both Democrat and Republican.
Oh, no, across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board. The whole thing upsets me.
Yeah.
It's incredibly aggravating. This state is so fucked.
Exactly. We have so many problems going on in this state. We've got the problem with Newark. I'm going to have to fly soon.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out how am I going to get to Newark Airport because there's no trains running.
Trains?
Yeah. Like, we'll see what happens with that strike, but this is the first time in 40 years, no trains.
Yeah.
And then Newark is just in complete disarray.
Disarray.
Yeah. Like, you have to sit down and, like, I think maybe, like, once we get to a general election, the Trump shit is not going to play out so well because if you have these huge issues.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think that, you know what? That's very much to the point of why it upsets me all so much because it's not really about any of the problems the state has, of which it has many. Yeah. Deep old problems. Are, I mean, any angle you want to look at, our infrastructure is completely fucked.
Yep.
Well, that's a big one for me.
Yeah. Infrastructure it's like 80.
Yeah.
Route 80 had freaking sinkholes.
It just keeps sinking into the ground.
Yeah. It's
repeatedly.
Yeah. Our infrastructure in this state is crumbling, and the only solution that I've gotten from Democrats is we're just going to get more federal money. It's like you can't really you spend so much already. How are you going to stop? Right. Like it just gets frustrating because of you're just going to spend this state into oblivion.
As if it's not practically there.
Yeah. It's already if we haven't already crossed the edge of oblivion, then we're damn close. So that's the thing that concerns me on their side, and the thing that concerns me for Jack Ciattarelli is that the main criticism that should be levied to any Republican in New Jersey is that you're effectively just a Democrat.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's call it what it is.
But you're just like, all right, you're more right wing than how they are over there.
Right.
And the issue too with Ciattarelli is, and I have to look more into this, but he doesn't seem to have a good history. There's some corruption
there's
aspects to it,
which is kind of par for the course.
It's par for the course, but it's like.
Not that it's acceptable.
Yeah, not that it's acceptable, but we had the same thing with Corzine and Christie and people and the people behind. And that's not to say anything about Phil Murphy.
Right.
Good Lord, let's just lock all the old people in with positive COVID patients together and see what happens.
New Jersey is in such a hole through multiple administrations through the state. Both sides, it's just so fucked. And I, honest to God, don't know how it gets fixed.
I really don't either. And I look down in this entire scope of these candidates, left or right, and I'm like, wow, we're fucked.
It's no, I don't think anyone across the board is going to do anything to legitimately make any ground to fix this state.
Oh yeah, no, I don't even think they understand what the problem is.
No.
And you can be like a Josh Gottheimer and just say I'm going to lower your taxes. It's expensive to live here, this, that, and the other thing. It's like.
It's pandering.
Yeah, it's pandering. How are you going to fucking do it?
What's the plan?
Yeah, and then what kind of ramifications are there for you doing this?
Yeah.
Because there will be.
Well, I personally don't know how it works out. Even if anything were to happen. Like I said, I think it's so completely fucked. that changes would have to be so extreme that it would create its own problems that would affect everybody in probably negative ways.
Yeah. And the issue, too, is like you could probably make this connection that New Jersey is kind of like a reflection of how things are with America larger, that we've just spent too much.
Yeah.
We've tried to do too many projects. We've allowed things that are critical to go unnoticed. And now all of a sudden we're sitting here and we're like, wow, we have candidates that are just playing culture war games.
Yeah.
We have candidates that are just like, well, instead of me answering your questions, I'm just going to say how good of a person I am and how terrible my opponents are. Right. And I know that's the nature of politics.
Sure. This isn't a strictly New Jersey thing. It's kind of the name of the game. Yeah, it's kind of what it's just become.
It's a time-tested thing, but this state really doesn't have any time to just fuck around and find out anymore. At one point, someone has to step up and lead, or the state crumbles.
This is like, and I feel like this is for like however you want to, like whatever color glasses you want to look at this through. Yeah. It's like critical mass.
Yeah.
No one's actively doing anything to try to solve any of the problems here. It's getting harder and harder to live here. Getting people pushed out. The amount of properties, because this is New Jersey, it's very expensive to buy anything here, that are just being bought by corporate entities. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to live here.
Yeah, and they're slowly, with the actions of Murphy, Christie before him, they're making it more and more impossible to live here. At some point, and that happened. And this was one of the this was one of the states that had the biggest loss of population after, during and after COVID.
Yes,
because we had some of the most draconian lockdowns of the entire country, and people said, and mostly Republicans said, "Fuck this! I will move to Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, wherever." And now we're just like, all right, now we're stuck with crumbling infrastructure. NJT has been a joke for so long, and now they're on strike.
Yeah.
Newark Airport, which is a major transportation hub and one of the biggest, aspects of living in New Jersey, is now in complete and total.
It's also it's so huge. It is like the New York alternative.
Yeah. It is. It's generally an easier airport to get to, fly out of, and this, that, and the other thing. And their ideas are just we'll just hire more air traffic controllers. And it's that doesn't fix the floppy disks that you've been using.
They're operating out of Philadelphia, not fucking Newark.
Yeah.
That's what people don't understand. We're supposed to have 14 on. We got 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So. That's all of that to say. This is a very important. Everyone always says that this is the most important election of our time. In every friggin' election.
It's kind of getting to that point, though.
This is an important election for New Jersey, and I'm sitting here struggling to think maybe the best candidate is to not vote. This is ridiculous what we got.
It's real stark. And obviously, we will do at least, I hope, another 1 or 2 of these before we get there. But, man, it's not looking great from my optics.
Yeah. So I think what we can do for the next one is maybe we map out the pathway to victory for both parties, because I've been contemplating that for a little bit. Touched on a little bit those middle counties and all that stuff. And we got more debates coming up.
Yep.
We can touch on that. And then we'll be getting close to the actual primary elections, so that's something else that we can talk about as we get closer.
They're around June 10th?
Yeah,
somewhere around there?
Early June, I know. So we can touch on that as well. So there's plenty of stuff to talk about for the New Jersey governor's race, and we'll see, because it'll be interesting to see. There has been a thought process among some that New Jersey's slowly turning red. Excuse me, with what happened with the 2021 governor's race, where Republicans barely lost, and then with
of course
Trump
with the presidential election.
So it'll be interesting to see if the Republicans can continue that kind of momentum, or if Trump and the tariffs and this, that, and the other thing have kind of poisoned the well, and the Democrats reclaim their stronghold.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
And we are at a point where there's a lot of big things happening day to day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe revisit it next week or whatever the case may be. Yep. And then, we'll see, man.
We'll see.
We'll see. It's complicated, and I don't feel great about it. I don't want to be doom and gloom, obviously, but like it's stark.
You're right. It's a stark state of affairs in New Jersey, and hopefully at some point we can get somebody that actually has a shred of leadership. But even then, we still have to worry about the legislator and the state senate. So
I just want to say somebody to say and give value to some sort of plan or course of action to fix anything here.
But we both know that both parties only really just want to rip out the copper wire before the building goes completely, it falls apart.